Our next review of the day is going to be for Theater Camp. Nick, take it away here.
All right, so Theater Camp is directed by Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman, based on a 2020 short film of the same name that they produced, with the cast starring Noah Galvin, Molly Gordon, Ben Platt, Jimmy Tatro, Patty Harrison, Ayo Edebiri, and Amy Sedaris. This movie is telling the story of a struggling theater camp. You have Jimmy Tatro, who is the son of Amy Sedaris' character, who has fallen into a coma, and her kind of crypto bro wannabe influencer son is taking the reins of running the camp. Meanwhile, you also have the story of Amos and Rebecca Diane, who are played by Ben Platt and Molly Gordon, who are in the process of writing the summer camp's annual production, which is based on the life of Amy Sedaris's Joan, who is the matriarch of running this camp. So the movie is not really clear from the marketing of this that this is a mockumentary. This is pretty much a comedic mockumentary in the vein of something like The Office or Parks and Recreation. And I think one of the biggest strengths of this movie is the performances of this cast, because this is essentially a movie that is made for and by theater people. But I feel like the movie doesn't get into that overt parody that I feel like a lot of movies that are tackling these very kind of niche communities end up doing. And you are getting a lot of inside jokes with the theater community, but you're also touching on a lot of universal themes of inadequacy, of wanting to belong and wanting acceptance. And I feel like the movie does that very well. Something that I think is kind of a weakness of this movie is that the movie is structured kind of odd, because it's a movie that has so many subplots going that I feel like it would have been better focused if they chose one main plot to stick with, because you have Jimmy Tatro, who's struggling with being this kind of dude bro who is trying to understand the workings of this camp and this community that he is kind of thrust into. You have the look at this codependent relationship between Ben Platt and Molly Gordon's character. And you also have Ayo Edebiri, who is funny every time she is on screen, because she's just there as a counselor who kind of lied on her resume as to get the job. And she has so many fun scenes, but she doesn't ultimately add to the main story, which I think is kind of a weakness of it, that some of these subplots don't really add anything. They're just there to be kind of fun asides. That being said, I had a great time with this movie. I was laughing through most of it. It's a lot of niche jokes, but I feel like even someone with a cursory knowledge of theater was going to get a lot more enjoyment out of this. But even for a general audience, I was there with a lot of kind of an older crowd, and they were having a great time with this. And the real highlight of this is, because this is a summer camp movie, it is basically kind of a theater kids wet hot American summer, is the performances of this entire young cast, who are absolutely incredible in every single one of their musical numbers. By the end of it, they have a final number about the life of Joan, who is found at the camp, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Nice. Watching the trailer, yeah, I can see the mockumentary style. I don't know, kind of gives also a little bit of a Waiting for Guffman. Is that kind of there too?
I don't think I've ever seen that, but I guess so. I haven't seen Waiting for Guffman.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was another situation. You know, it was a mockumentary. I think that was also about a play too, I believe, about somebody putting on a play. But yeah, okay. I know that you're a big fan of Ben Platt. There, I know you loved him in what was that movie? That he came out with?
Oh, yeah, I rewatched that recently, and yeah, that movie has not aged well, especially after I listened to the full soundtrack for Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan
Yeah,
Hansen.
yeah, I'm like, fuck that movie now.
Oh man,
I got to print a retraction. I don't know if I've even forgiven him for that, but I feel like in this, he's kind of playing this this guy who is kind of taking the fact that he didn't achieve his dreams of being a performer out on a lot of these kids, but even he kind of has layers to him.
Mm, okay. All right. What would you give theater camp? Did you
Hmm.
already give yours?
Yeah, for me with theater camp, I had a lot of fun watching this. I thought the movie is very funny, especially with all of these different character dynamics. However, I think there are a lot of subplots that ultimately don't really add anything to it, that kind of distract from what this movie I think is trying to focus on, which is the the dynamic between Molly Gordon and Ben Platt and their relationship with all of their students that are trying to make this play happen. I had a lot of fun with it. I got a lot of great laughs out of it, which is ultimately what you need whenever you're trying to make a comedy. I give this a very solid stream it. I had a lot of fun with it, but I do feel like it is kind of crosses the line into being too niche to really connect with a huge audience.
Mm, okay. So stream
And
it.
yeah, and the movie is doing very well for a Searchlight. This is their second strongest limited opening since Jojo Rabbit, with a $301,000 in its opening weekend.
Mm. Oh, what's the budget on this?
It's not listed on the Wikipedia, and I imagine it's not that big because this is pretty much taking a lot of the same people who wrote the original short film. It's written by Noah Galvin, Molly Gordon, Nick Lieberman, and Ben Platt, and all of them are coming back for this. So I don't imagine it's that big.
It says it's $8 million. Right. So that's the first thing that came up. So $8 million for theater camp. Hmm, okay. Yeah, and then so far, box office, I think it's been 2.7 million so
Yeah,
far.
so not bad, especially considering how niche this movie is, kind of how limited the marketing has been. It's been pretty good.
Yeah. So that was Nick with theater camp. Um